On this episode of the Get Fed podcast, we'll be discussing decision-making fatigue, one way you can absolutely minimize it, and why sometimes analog, it's better than digital. See you in the show. I'm JB, master presenter, former Fortune 50 sales executive, and your guide for everything sales and productivity.
I'm the doctor, Dr. Andre Caruso, a clinical psychologist and your resident expert in behavior, mindset, and wellness.
We hope you're hungry.
It's time to get fed by JB and the doctor.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Get Fed podcast, where we nourish your brain with business insights that you're not going to get anywhere else. I'm JB. I'm your host for today, and thank you for joining me. By the way, if you have not yet liked, subscribed, followed, go ahead and do that for us. If you're watching on the browser, you can jump onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you watch or listen, or you can go onto YouTube if you don't know where that's at. We appreciate it. We do this for you, and hopefully you get some great insight. Now, these are bite-sized tidbits, so we're going to be here for less than 10 minutes, which means no matter how short your drive happens to be, you ought to be able to get this entire podcast in. Let's get started. Decision-making fatigue. It's something that we spoke about in the last couple of weeks. It's been the content that we've shared on social media. It's been part of a newsletter that we put out there. Decision-making fatigue is totally real. Decision-making fatigue simply being this concept that the quality of my decisions will go down over time due to everything from stress, hunger, having to make too many decisions, getting tired, so on and so forth. Decision-making fatigue is absolutely real. I wrote about how there's studies around this that show the impact on parolees, hearings from judges, and the time of the day. And so we do see the influence of decision-making fatigue. So if it's real, how do we deal with it? Well, previously I talked about how we could take breaks and we could eat healthier and get into routines. But one of the ways that we can really help minimize decision-making fatigue is by making sure that we're only making decisions around the things that actually matter. That's a lot easier said than done. It's very simple, but often simple things are the hardest to do consistently. And so for today, I want to talk about one way specifically we can go ahead and we can reduce the amount of decisions we need to make by prioritizing effectively. And specifically, I want to talk about how we can retain information better so that we can prioritize and we don't have to think as much. And anytime we don't have to think as much, our brain likes it because our brain's actually pretty lazy. If you didn't know that, this is a fact. Our brain does not like to work. If we can spare it from working, it likes that. And so rather than using simple shortcuts or heuristics that can get us all off base, and that's a whole nother topic for another day, but instead of talking about that, we're going to simply talk about analog versus digital and why it matters. Now, I get we're in a digital world. We are. Almost everything we do today is digital. I'd be lying if I said I didn't run an electronic calendar. I didn't do almost everything through email. And yet here I am today, still 2024, and I still use a paper planner. Yes, I use a paper planner. I've been doing it for years. I do it in addition to everything I do electronic, and I do it for a reason. There's a lot of science behind using paper. There's science behind writing things down, and then there's science behind actually reading paper. There's a lot of evidence here. This is not a little bit of evidence. It's a lot of evidence. So there's evidence that comes not just from, oh my goodness, the National Library of Medicine and Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. These are government, funded research studies, by the way. And there's the Hechinger report. Now, the studies that focus on handwriting are really studies that you can find, and we'll put it in the notes here for today, but they're pretty clear. When we write things down, we retain it better than when we use this fancy thing, right? Keyboards are bad when it comes to retaining information. We don't retain information as well when we type versus writing. And then, funny enough, the Hechinger report takes a look at our ability to retain, and it took students from all ages, elementary school through college, and it's a definitive study that really strongly evidences that we retain information better by reading on paper than we do electronics. So why does all this matter? Well, if our goal is to retain information, especially our priorities, the best way to do that so we don't have to think about it is to really hack our brain. And hack's an overused word, but the reality here is simple. If I can handwrite instead of type, and I can read something on paper and physically turn those pages, I'm going to retain it better, which means I need to think less, which my brain loves, by the way. And that's going to help me reduce decision making fatigue. This is a definitive, actionable thing you can do right now to make yourself better and reduce decision making fatigue. I know it sounds too easy to be true, but it is true. So what's it take? Well, generally, it takes a little bit more work because it means that we can't just do everything electronic the way we might have been training ourselves to do. It means that we might have to do a little bit of our work twice. We might have to carry things online and carry things on paper. But I promise you, if you invest a little bit of time up front to do both of these things, you will see better results than just trying to do everything digital. That's the reality here. It's the absolute truth behind it. So what can you do here? Well, I recommend taking a look at your electronic calendar, taking a look at everything that you're typing up that's important, your really important notes. And I'd recommend seeing what you can convert to paper when you're reviewing your day, which I'm sure y'all are, hopefully at night, and you're planning for your day, which ideally is also the night before or even at the start of the week. Now, I love to have a monthly, a weekly, and a daily. And so I do all these things. That works best for me. It helps cement what is really important for me. And it gives me something I can turn back to if I do forget. So if I fall off that automation, I'm able to get right back onto this. Really, really important for you to know as a small business owner. This does work. I've been doing it for years. It helps me prioritize. It helps reduce a lot of the static and noise. It keeps me centered and focused on what is important, which is hugely, hugely impactful and results in great differences in my ability to stay focused on what I need to. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit that it would be crazy to suggest going all analog. We don't want to go all analog. That's not the point here. In fact, there's a lot of tools today like Supernote, which my partner uses, the doc, Remarkable, which I know a ton of people use. That's still electronic, but allows us to work through writing by hand. And the same studies that show that typing's ineffective when it comes to retaining information compared to handwriting, those same exact studies show that I can have the same benefits using a Remarkable or a Supernote or a tablet of some sort with the pen that I would have simply by using old school pen and paper. And so if you are somebody who's on this trend of some of these digital notebooks, I think it's a great trend. It really helps marry the analog and digital in a way that's going to help you retain information. And that is going to put you in a position to reduce decision-making fatigue because you're not going to have to think about this stuff as much. It's really, really helpful. Again, I've been doing this. I can tell you it's effective and it works. If you're sitting down and everything's digital, but you find that you're getting tired at the end of the day and you find that you keep having to remember what it is you need to be focusing on or prioritizing on, make the shift. Try doing a little bit of both. I promise it is worth the investment of time up front. It will not only save you time long term because you'll automate a lot of this and you won't have to remember it because you'll retain it better. It's literally going to help you make better decisions, which is going to have an impact all over your business. You must be doing something like this if you want to be working at peak performance. It's time to get involved, folks. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm JB. I hope you found this useful. By the way, again, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow. If you're not on a platform to do it, you can find us on a platform to do it. I promise. And I hope you found this information not just useful, but actionable so you can go ahead and have better results in your business right now, today. I'll see you next week.